Welcome to Write With Me, session number 25. Today I'm going to be working on Island Dawn on Maui, chapter number 32. Part of the series of Write With Me is where I actually do dictation. This is how I write. I've got my Sennheiser lavalier here, and I just simply record my book in the voice notes app on the iPad or the phone, and I just copy the transcription out. Seems to work pretty well. This is the fourth romance book in this series. You can get the first one, Moonlight at Wailea, for free on my website, aaronbelsing.com. And I've got a couple other books here as well, plus a series. Yes! I love doing this. Writing stories to bring you angst, internal conflict, and destination romance, where the location is actually a character in the book, as you'll see soon. So let's get started here. Let me get my notes going and we'll get dictating. And don't shut off the recording. I did that once. It was funny. Not really. All right, recording. Chapter number 32. In the morning, the wind was still blowing outside, but the rain had passed. Light began filtering through the clouds, streaming across the landscape, lighting up the house, the plantation that was once her uncle's, and now Mara and Dean owned the property together, with the damage that it incurred and all the challenges that they faced. As they woke up, snuggling together in what was Mara's mother's room, which is now hers and Dean's, they originally were sleeping in her Uncle Glenn's room, but due to the storm damage and that they had to plywood up the window, they now slept in a separate room. As the light began beaming through the window, Dean detached himself from Mara as he had snuggled her and woke up. She was still sleeping soundly after the raging storm at night. He left her there, sliding up the comforter over her, snuggling up her body, draping her brown hair across her back, and then removing a few loose strands from her face. She didn't move at all, completely worn out. He stood up and walked outside the bedroom and closed the door gently. He didn't want to slam the door because in this house, without too much furniture, everything echoed. As he padded into the kitchen, he took a look outside, and the sight that greeted him made his jaw hang open for several moments. He had been on damaged sites and construction sites before, but this was nothing like he'd ever seen. Trees were damaged, leaves were strewn all over the place, multiple broken branches leaned up against his truck, and he hoped that it wasn't damaged. Mara's SUV, Mara's SUV appeared to be undamaged. And he thought, and the thought crossed him, I should go out and inspect the damage. But then he realized he hadn't had any food all night. He was hungry, and he had the shakes from the endless adrenaline pump. So instead, he went and made himself a coffee, fired up their Keurig, and in a few minutes, he had a steeping cup of hot coffee. He sat at the table, just listening to the dripping water cascading off the roof, pattering down outside, running down the gutters. The sound in his mind sounded like a symphony of nature working on a house, slowly attempting to tear it down, while he and Mara rapidly trying to build it back together so they could either sell it or potentially rent it. He sat there and thought for a long time about the experience of battling the elements, keeping the house up, and maintaining it. And he wondered what he really wanted to do. Mara was an incredible woman, still young and vibrant, with a husband who had passed away. And as he took another sip of his coffee, he looked outside, wondering maybe this was a place for him. He had his business in San Diego. He had work to do in Honolulu, and yet he was perfectly content here. This was a different experience, not the construction job that he had before, not his architect firm, which seemed to run pretty well oftentimes. He had to do a few things on this trip, but nothing stunning, which was a different experience for him. As he stood up and walked around the room, looking in the corners for water damage or anything that had penetrated the house, he was happy to find nothing. Only a few spare cobwebs that he reminded himself he needed to take care of later. As he turned around, he saw motion out of the corner of his eye and jumped and almost splashed his coffee. Mara had walked out of the room sleepy-eyed, stretching her hands out with her long nightshirt, yawning with bags under her eyes. Dean collected himself before she noticed. And then she called out, "Surprised you, didn't I?" "Oh, so I guess you did catch me?" "Oh yeah, I got you for yesterday when you scared the crap out of me." "Good morning." "Good morning, honey," he said. With that, a smile creased across her face as she walked up and snuggled him for a moment in his sweatshirts and in his sweats, in his blue thick cotton sweats, his rumply Metallica t-shirt, and the coffee in his hand, and she said, "Where's mine?" He reached down and kissed the top of her head and stroked her brown hair down her back and held her at the waist for a moment. And then he went to the machine to fire up another cup of coffee out of the Keurig while she looked out the windows and gasped every time she looked out a different window. Dean handed her the mug of coffee when he was done, and he asked, "Pretty crazy out there. Do you want to go outside again?" She shook her head slowly after last night's drama. Not until that wind dies down a bit. She could still see the palm trees rippling in the distance, shaking wildly like someone taking a bed sheet and whipping it for all they were worth. "No, unless there's something damaged, let's not go out and get the screen door more trashed." At that, Dean's laughter echoed through the mostly empty house, and he said, "Oh, I think that screen door is pretty toast. We're going to have Wes hook us up with another one. That is pretty damaged." They sat there talking about the experience of what it was like. Mara had never been through a full tropical storm. Dean had endured one several years before in Honolulu, but he was in a concrete apartment and he was doing work outside. He explained to Mara what it was like to have to do construction, how to prepare for it, that type of storm. She asked, "Well, what about the hurricanes that have come through here?" And Dean thought for a moment. He said, "I remember Hawaii's had a few hurricanes, but fortunately they're far and few between. I mean, Maui's, they had that firestorm, which was horrific." Mara shook her head. "Firestorm? Oh, yeah, no, she would know about that." Mara shook her head, sadly looking into her cup as she took another sip. "Yeah, that was a freaking tragedy. Hopefully, maybe, depending on what we do with the property, we can help those people out somehow." Dean replied, "That would be wonderful. I don't know what we're going to do, but since it's been a couple years since that's happened, but I'm sure those people can use any help they can get." They cooked up breakfast. They cooked up a breakfast of Spam and eggs with Cholula sauce. And Mara hadn't initially liked the style of cooking that Dean did, but after several days she got used to it and really looked forward to it. with the fresh croissants they had purchased at the store the day before. They were covered in crumbs sprinkled all around the table, and laughed about it and said, "This isn't exactly the white service table place, is it?" Mara asked. And Dean looked at the table, brushed a couple crumbs into his hand, and put them back on the plate. And after he'd finished, he said, "No, I need one of those crumb scrapers. I'll ask the maitre d' about that later to talk about the service here." With that, they both laughed, their laughter echoing across the room. Even though it was cool in the house, the air was humid and it was stuffy. Dean got up and walked over and clicked on the fan, turned it down to low, and the low thrum of the blades rippled through the room and brought a cool relief. They hadn't turned on the air conditioning yet because it wasn't that warm, and Dean suggested not turning it on until they made sure nothing was damaged so they couldn't ruin the compressor. After showering up and cleaning themselves up, a little bit later in the morning, Dean made a call to Wes and was happy to hear that everything had gone well with his house and his work crew's house. And Wes said over the phone, said, "Yeah, that was a pretty wild storm. You guys take some damage there?" And Dean said, "Yes, we had a branch come through the tree, or come through the back window, but we were able to get it plywooded up." "What the? Are you kidding? Are you sure you're okay? We can get out there right now." And Dean said, "Well, hang on. Let's make sure the work crews can clear out whatever damage is on the road before we go all crazy." Wes replied, "Good point. Is Mara there? Is she okay?" Dean looked over at her. "Sure thing. Do you want to talk with her?" "Absolutely." Clicking his phone to speaker mode, Wes and Dean talked for a few moments, and Mara explained how they battled the screen door and battened down the hatch on the back window. And she sheepishly said, "I thought I was slick and went outside, and I guess we're going to be paying you to put a new screen door on, aren't we?" Wes replied, "Happy to oblige anytime. Why don't we convene tomorrow? That way we give the county some time to repair things, whatever happened. There's no need to be out on the road today." Mara replied to Wes, "That sounds good. We're going to take a look here. Hopefully nothing else is wrecked. And as soon as we know, we'll let you know. And please be safe and have a good day, and let your work crew know we appreciate them, okay?" With that, Wes clicked off, and Dean set his phone down. "Oh, that wasn't too bad. I'm glad they didn't get hurt or nothing happened to them," Dean said aloud. Mara thought for a moment, looking out the windows again. "We should probably go take a look to see how the shed and the outbuildings and that hidden cottage did. And what do you think?" "Yeah, of course. Let's get ourselves ready." Just then, Dean's phone rang as he was walking back to the room, and he saw it was Calvin. Dean clicked, answered, and said, "Fran..." Oh, no. He heard Calvin's voice. "Oh, I expected to hear Fran. Calvin, how are you?" "Oh, I'm fine. Fran's house took a little bit of damage in the storm, so she's off today. But I just wanted to call and see how you two were doing." "I'm going to put you on speakerphone." He clicked over. Mara chimed in with a sing-song voice. "Hi, Calvin. How are you? Did you survive okay in the storm?" "Oh, yes. My house was just fine. Me and my wife have been through a few of these, but unfortunately, Fran's house took a little bit of damage, so she's going to be off for probably the next couple days." "Oh, I'm so sorry," Mara said. Hopefully she's okay, and her husband?" "Oh, yes, they're fine. Just some minor damage on their house. Nothing they can't handle." "Perfect. Is there anything else?" Mara asked. Calvin said, yes, actually we received an email from that buyer, and they've moved their offer from 1.6 to 1.5 million to 1.7 million. At that, Mara laughed out loud. These people are unbelievable. Do they really think we're going to give up this property for that? I mean, we put so much work in. At that, Dean sat there and stared at her wide-eyed, and she noticed that and looked at him and mouthed the word "what" as she shrugged her shoulders. And she told Calvin, please tell them thank you much for the offer, but at the moment we're not ready to move on the property. Calvin replied, sure thing, no problem. Okay, you two be safe and stay off the roads. It's a mess in town, okay? With that, he clicked off. Dean continued to stare at Mara, and she smiled and said, well, now that I know what this property is worth, and I'll be able to get some of my work done today, I got an email from the boss saying I need to get some new forms and new hires taken care of, but that's nothing I can't do later. So let's find out what's happened to our property, shall we? With that, Dean stood up and led her to the bedroom to get showered up and ready for the day. Perfect. Now let me stop the recording. 15 minutes of recording here. Perfect. Good. Okay. And then you can see the transcript there. And it does an incredible job, like instantly. This makes it so much easier. I used to just do voice to text. And years ago when I was like writing even my first book, Antarctic Tears, I was using voice to text, and it was terrible trying to do it on my phone. And oh my gosh, I tried, I really tried, but the software and the capability in the voice to text has gotten so much better. It's made a world of difference, and that's how I can get these books to you quicker. I want to make sure I have a quality product so you enjoy the adventure of the location in the Maui Desire Series. With this book, that was session number 25 of chapter 32 in Island Dawn on Maui. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Aaron Belsing. That's my pen name. Check out aaronbelsing.com, and also check out my thrillers and nonfiction at aaronrlinsdau.com. Thank you very much for watching, and look forward to more Write With Me sessions. Please like, comment, and subscribe.